Throwback: The Journey of Nkrumah, the Forgotten Son. Once upon a time, in a mansion of wealth and power, lived a young man named Nkrumah, the only son of a Ghanaian business magnate, Patrick Nkrumah. Born into privilege, he knew nothing of hardship. Surrounded by luxury, he wasted his days partying, spending recklessly on women and friends who praised him only when his wallet was full. His father, fearing for the future of his empire, gave him a final chance, a briefcase full of money, a mansion, and a warning: build your own empire or never return. But Nkrumah failed. He ignored advice, abandoned wisdom, and within 6 months lost everything. Betrayed by the very friends and women he once fed, he returned home, only to be cast out by his own father. He ran to Kumasi, ashamed, and became a kaya boy, pushing trucks, pounding fufu, and sleeping in a wooden kiosk. That's where he met Nyakoa Abronoma, a woman who loved the wrong man, Freddie, and suffered the kind of heartbreak Nkrumah had once caused others. He watched Nyakoa cry, beg, cook, and send money to a man who never respected her. She confided in him, leaned on him, and unknowingly awakened something in him that no riches ever could: compassion, dignity, and the hunger to become a better man. Though mocked as kaya, Nkrumah stayed loyal. Now, in this final chapter, we witness whether Nkrumah, once disowned and disgraced, will rise, not through wealth, but through wisdom, humility, and the scars of his own journey. Will he meet his father again, as a broken son or a man reborn? Will Nyakoa finally see the worth of the man who stood beside her in silence? And what will become of Freddie, whose heart fed on love he never returned? Stay with us. This is the final episode of Nkrumah, the Kaya Boy. Nkrumah stepped out of the washroom wearing the new clothes Nyarkoaa had bought. The jeans clung neatly to his waist, and the plain white shirt was crisp and fresh, something he hadn't worn in years. For a moment, he stared at his own reflection in the small mirror by the kitchen window, unsure of who was staring back. When Nyakoa saw him, she paused. "Kaya, you clean up well," she said, half teasing. "You look different, but well, you're still just a Kaya boy." She tried to laugh it off, but her eyes lingered a little longer than usual. They took a trot to a quiet local spot, tucked behind a cluster of orange trees, where plastic chairs circled wooden tables and grilled tilapia filled the air with smoke. Nyakoa sat opposite Nkrumah and poured him a drink. "I brought you here because I feel lonely," she admitted, stirring her straw. "Not for love, but just to talk. Maybe hear why someone like you chose to be a Kaya boy." Nkrumah was taken aback. No one had ever asked. He took a slow sip and said softly, "My name is Nkrumah. I'm not really from Kumasi. I came from Accra." He wanted to say more. He wanted to speak about his father, the mansion, the briefcase, the betrayal. But then he remembered, "Don't ever stand anywhere and call me your father." So he simply said, "I'm an orphan, struggling to live." Nyakoa's eyes softened. "Oh, Kaya, life hasn't been kind to you." They sat in silence for a while, watching the street lights flicker. After a while, they left the spot quietly. A few days later, Nyakoa was walking through the marketplace when she saw them. Freddie and his new girlfriend, laughing and holding hands as if no heartbreak had ever existed. It cut deep. Her chest tightened and tears threatened to spill. That evening, she called Nkrumah. "Kaya, come home. I'll pay you." He arrived, confused. "Dress well," she instructed. "We're going for a walk." "Why?" he asked. She forced a smile. I want Freddie to see that I also have someone. I want him to feel jealous, even if nothing's between us. Nkrumah nodded slowly. Okay, I'll walk with you. He didn't understand it all, but he understood loneliness. Sometimes pretending to be loved is the closest we get to healing. The evening they stepped out together, Nyakoa held Nkrumah's arm tightly, her head slightly tilted toward him. She smiled with confidence, not from the heart, but from somewhere wounded, trying to prove a point. They took photos along the roadside, posing near a suya cellar, under streetlights, even by a Trotro station billboard. Nkrumah smiled awkwardly, not knowing the real purpose behind the pictures. Later that night, Nyakoa posted one of the photos to her WhatsApp status with the caption, "My comforter heart." Within minutes, her phone buzzed. Freddie, "Hey, so now you're dating a truck pusher." The words pierced like a knife. Her eyes welled up. Then came the messages from her friends. "Ama, Nyakoa Abronoma, is that not the Kaya boy from Kejatia?" Linda, "Ah, so you're now dating truck pushers. Life has really humbled you." She felt exposed, mocked, judged. But when the teasing became too loud, she put on a mask of courage. "Yes, I love him. So what? At least he's not a thief like some men I know." She knew the words weren't entirely true, but it silenced the gossip. For now. Meanwhile, Nkrumah continued carrying loads, pounding fufu, and scrubbing compounds for Nyakoa. He had no idea what was happening behind closed phones and private group chats. One evening, as they shared oranges outside, Nyakoa turned to him. "Kaya, do you have any plans for the future?" He wiped his forehead. "I don't know, madam. I'm just hoping life will smile on me one day. Maybe things will change." She looked at him for a long moment, then smiled gently. "From today, don't eat outside in the evening again." He blinked. "Why?" "Come to my house and eat. It's better you save that money. Little by little, you can buy a motorbike and start Okada work." Nkrumah looked at her with quiet awe. "Madam, I don't even know what to say. Thank you." She waved her hand. "Don't thank me yet. Just don't disappoint me." For the first time in a long while, Nkrumah felt something warm rising inside him. Not love, not yet, but purpose. Sometimes the hand that feeds you also lifts you from the ground. One hot afternoon in Kejatia market, as Nkrumah dragged a loaded truck across the crowded stalls, wiping sweat from his brow, a silver SUV rolled slowly past the edge of the street. Inside, seated in the passenger seat, was Uncle Sarpon, a cousin of Patrick Nkrumah. He leaned forward, squinting through the dusty glass. Slow down," he said to the driver. There, under the blazing sun, barefoot and hauling crates of tomatoes, was a face he knew too well. Nkrumah. But how? Could the only son of Ghana's media tycoon now be a Kaya boy? Uncle Sarpong took a quick photo from his phone without Nkrumah noticing and left quietly. That same evening he visited Patrick Nkrumah with the evidence in hand. "Patrick, forgive me, but is this not your son?" Patrick stared at the phone and broke down. Tears streamed from his eyes as he collapsed into the chair. "That's him, my son," he whispered. "My only son." "Then bring him back," Sarpong urged. But Patrick shook his head slowly. "No, let him finish learning. I warned him. I gave him everything. Until he becomes a man on his own, I will not interfere." 2 months passed. Back in Kumasi, Nyakoa sat beside Nkrumah one quiet evening. "Kaya, how much have you saved so far?" Nkrumah rubbed his neck. About 4,800 cedis. She stood up, walked inside, and returned with a sealed envelope. Take this. It's 20,000 Ghana cedis. Add it and go buy a tricycle. Stop pushing trucks. Nkrumah froze, mouth open. Madam Nyarkoaa, you did this for me. She nodded. Use it wisely, and don't look back. He dropped to his knees in her compound, eyes misty. You've fed me. You gave me clothes. You've sheltered me. Now you're giving me a future? I'm not your blood. Why are you doing this? Nyakoa smiled softly. Maybe God sent you to remind me that not every man will break me. From that day, Nkrumah stopped pushing trucks. He bought his tricycle. He began earning. He even started dreaming again. Nyakoa continued feeding him every evening, and later gave him additional money to start a small provisions business in the community. He never stopped praising her. You are the mother I lost, the sister I never had, the angel I never prayed for. Sometimes the person who lifts you is not the one with riches, but the one with heart. Nkrumah's life was no longer defined by sweat and sore palms. After purchasing his tricycle, doors began to open. Every morning he would roam the streets of Kumasi, transporting goods, sacks of rice, gallons of oil, crates of tomatoes, bundles of plantain, from the market to nearby communities. Market women would wave him down, shouting, Nkrumah, come help me. His name began to spread. His respect grew, but even as he worked hard, he never forgot Nyarkoaa Abronoma, the one who lifted him when the world spat on him. Out of gratitude, Nkrumah began buying food items with his earnings. He would quietly deliver bags of rice, tins of tomatoes, sardines, and other provisions to her door. Sometimes he surprised her with boxes of indomie for her business. One evening, after he dropped off another package, Nyarkoaa sat alone on her bed, staring at the items with tears in her eyes. I gave everything to Freddie, she whispered. I never received even a coin in return. But Kaya, he gives with his heart. She smiled through her tears. Sometimes the one you help ends up becoming your blessing. Meanwhile, far away in Accra, Patrick Nkrumah was battling with silent curiosity and buried regret. He had refused to bring his son back, but he had not stopped watching. He summoned 2 trusted agents and gave them a simple task. Go to Kejetia. Find out if he's still pushing trucks. When they arrived in Kumasi, they asked around the market. Everyone knew Nkrumah. Ah, that boy! Very humble, one old trader said. He used to push kaya, but now he drives a tricycle. Respectful pa. He greets everyone, never cheats. And he helps the market women more than our own children, another woman added. The agents were stunned. Nkrumah had become a local hero in silence. They returned to Accra and stood before Patrick. Sir, your son, he's no longer a kaya boy. He's now doing well, very well. Everyone speaks highly of him. Patrick's hand trembled slightly. Dig deeper, he said quietly. I want to know more, everything, the people around him, how he lives now. There was no pride in his voice, just a wounded father searching for a son he never stopped loving. Sometimes the strongest roots grow in the harshest soil. As Nkrumah's tricycle business grew, Nyakoa quietly stepped back from how she once treated him. One morning after pounding fufu, Nkrumah offered to sweep her compound, as he had always done. But Nyakoa shook her head. No, Kaya. No more errands for me. You are no longer my errand boy. He stood still, confused. But I don't mind. I owe you everything. She looked at him softly. And I respect you for that. But since I gave you money to establish yourself, you've grown. You are a big man now. I won't let you serve me like before." "But," he tried again. She cut him off gently, placing her hand on his chest. "You're too special to me now. Please, understand me." Nkrumah felt the warmth of her words wrap around his spirit like a kente cloth. He smiled quietly. Months passed, and one night, after delivering goods to a customer, Nkrumah sat alone, heart full. He could no longer hide it. He was in love. She had become more than a helper. She was his peace, his friend, his reason to rise each morning. The next day, with nervous hands and a hopeful heart, he approached Nyakoa outside her shop. "I want to tell you something," he began, voice low but steady. "I've tried to hide it, but I can't anymore." She turned to him, curious. "I love you, Nyakoa. I've fallen for you completely, and if you'd have me, I want you to be mine." She stood silent, heart pounding. Then she nodded slowly, eyes soft. I'll have to speak to my mother first," she said. "She warned me about Freddie, and I didn't listen. I won't make the same mistake twice." The next morning, Nyakoa sat before her mother and shared the news. "Mama, Nkrumah has proposed to me." Her mother blinked. "You mean that Kaya boy?" "Yes," Nyakoa said. The old woman exhaled deeply. I may not be rich, but I've lived long enough to know peace is better than gold. That boy may not have come from silver spoons, but everyone speaks of his humility. He has a future. Sometimes a woman must choose the man who brings her peace, not pressure." Nyakoa smiled. Her heart was steady. She had chosen not with her eyes, but with her soul. She said yes. After all the pain, shame, and silent prayers, Nyakoa accepted Nkrumah's proposal. Their relationship blossomed like a long-awaited rain falling on thirsty soil. They shared laughter, meals, dreams, no longer as madam and helper, but as partners building something deeper. One afternoon, a man in his late 50s waved down Nkrumah near the edge of Kajetia market. He had several heavy boxes and crates, bound for a warehouse on the other side of town. "Please, can you help me deliver these?" the man asked. Nkrumah smiled. "Of course, boss." He loaded the goods onto his tricycle and began the long ride, through thick traffic, dusty corners and narrow streets. Nearly 2.5 hours later, they arrived. But as Nkrumah parked, the man's face fell. "I can't find my wallet," he said, patting every pocket. "Please, I think I lost it. I can't pay you." Nkrumah sighed. For a moment his heart sank, but he looked at the man, clearly distressed, and said gently, "Don't worry. It's okay." The man blinked, surprised. "But I wasted your whole day." Still, Nkrumah smiled. "No problem." In fact, he reached into his own pocket and pulled out 30 cedis. "Here, use this for your transport." The man stood frozen. "You're giving me money?" Nkrumah nodded. "Life is hard for everyone. You may need this more than I do today." With trembling hands, the man took the money, his voice cracking. "God will bless you, son. You're not just a driver. You're a gift. Please, let me take your number." Nkrumah gave it, bowed his head, and rode home with an empty wallet, but a full heart. That evening, he told Nyakoa what happened. She smiled warmly and placed a warm bowl of yam porridge in front of him. "Kaya," she said softly, "there is more blessing in giving than receiving. Sometimes kindness plants seeds we don't even know we've sown." Nkrumah exhaled deeply. "I didn't do it for reward, but I hope it means something." She touched his hand gently. It does. To God, to life, and to me. When a man gives with nothing left, the ancestors mark his name in the wind. 2 weeks later, as Nkrumah sat outside with Nyakoa, sharing roasted groundnuts and soft banter, his phone rang. It was the elderly man he once helped without expecting anything in return. "Hello, young man. It's me, the one who lost his wallet." Nkrumah stood up. "Yes, sir. Good evening. I want to meet you tomorrow morning. Come to Abrepo Junction. I have something to show you." The next day, curious but calm, Nkrumah arrived. The man was waiting in front of a large spare parts store, filled with car batteries, motorbike engines, bolts, rims, radiators, everything a mechanic could dream of. "This is mine," the man said, "but I'll be traveling abroad for 6 months. I've watched you from afar. You gave when you had little. You didn't steal, you didn't lie, and you never asked for reward." He placed the keys in Nkrumah's hands. "Take care of this shop until I return. I trust you." Nkrumah was stunned. His mouth opened, but no words came. All he could do was nod as tears welled up in his eyes. That evening, he told Nyakoa. She jumped up, hugged him, and began dancing barefoot in their compound. "Hey, Kaya, look at God. I told you, there's more blessing in giving." Nkrumah parked his tricycle, his beloved Aboboya, and stepped into a new chapter. He ran the store with military precision. Every pesewa was recorded, every sale matched with an invoice, and every deposit made into the man's bank account. 6 months later, the man returned from abroad and requested a full report. They sat at a small table as Nkrumah handed over his ledger. The man compared the sales records, deposit slips, and inventory lists. Everything matched. No item missing. No pesewa stolen. The man leaned back, exhaled deeply, and smiled. "You've passed a test that many fail." He handed Nkrumah another set of keys. "Follow me." They drove to a newly built warehouse, 5 times larger than the shop, stocked with high-end car engines, tools, motors, and rare spare parts. "This is my biggest investment. I want you to manage it until I return again. And this," he pulled out a key fob, "is your car. You're no longer on a tricycle. I've also arranged a house for you nearby. Go and live like the man you've become." Nkrumah dropped to his knees, tears of joy. Sometimes the hand you lift without expectation becomes the hand that lifts you to destiny. Nkrumah had changed. His rough hands were now adorned with a watch, his worn slippers replaced with polished shoes, his clothes neat, tailored, and dignified. The man once called Kaya was now operating the largest spare parts warehouse in Kumasi, a respected name whispered by traders, drivers, and business owners alike. Beside him, always, was Nyarkoaa Abronoma, no longer the heartbroken noodle seller, but the woman who had believed in him when the world turned away. They lived together in a modest but beautiful apartment, filled with laughter, peace, and shared purpose. One peaceful Sunday evening, as they cruised through town in Nkrumah's black saloon car, music playing softly in the background, Nyarkoaa spotted a familiar face. "Hey, Nkrumah, stop the car!" He parked gently. Across the road stood Freddie, wearing a faded t-shirt and sagging trousers, pacing around like he was waiting for someone. Nyakoa rolled down her window. "Freddie, it's been a while. How are you?" Freddie turned slowly. His jaw dropped. Nkrumah, driving a car, dressed like a boss. He forced a smile. "Oh, I'm good. I'm just meeting someone around here." "All right." Nyakoa replied calmly with a subtle smile. That night, Freddie's curiosity ate at him. He sent her a WhatsApp message. Freddie, was that really Kaya driving the car? Nyakoa, yes, that's my man now. We run a business. We live in our own apartment. Life has been good to us. Freddie, wow, I didn't expect that. I'm happy for you. She paused, then typed slowly. Thank you, Freddie, for leaving me. Your absence brought me an angel. Nkrumah is everything you were not. Kind, respectful, and honest. Freddie's fingers trembled as he read. He tried to convince her to meet, to talk, just for closure, he claimed. But her reply came swift and final. It's too late. I cried for you. I begged. But you had your chance. Now I've found peace, and I'm not walking backward. Freddie placed his phone down slowly. His heart was heavy with bitterness and regret. But the clock had turned. The truck pusher he once insulted now sat in the front seat of a new life. When you throw away a seed, another person will plant it and harvest joy. 6 months later, the elderly man returned once again to Kumasi. This time, what he saw amazed him more than ever. Nkrumah was no longer just managing the warehouse. He was expanding it. He and Nyakoa Abranoma, now fully partners in love and business, had turned the spare parts enterprise into one of the most respected distribution hubs in the Asante region. Nyakoa no longer sold Indomie by the roadside at night. She now oversaw operations, managed records, and coordinated suppliers. The man smiled. You two have done more than I imagined. He shook Nkrumah's hand tightly. I'm heading to Accra for a week. Keep going. I'll return soon. Exactly 7 days later, as Nkrumah sorted through invoices at the warehouse, a strange noise filled the air, the soft roar of multiple luxury car engines. He stepped out of the warehouse, squinting under the afternoon sun. 6 expensive SUVs were approaching slowly. For a moment, he thought they were wealthy clients or business partners. But when the doors opened and he saw the man stepping out of the lead vehicle, his heart skipped, his breath stopped. It was Patrick Nkrumah, his father. Nkrumah dropped the invoice he was holding. His legs moved on their own, his eyes filled with tears. He ran. Patrick Nkrumah ran too. Right there, in front of workers, drivers, and the man who gave him a second chance. Father and son collided into an embrace that erased years of pain. My son, Patrick whispered, holding him tightly. Please, Daddy, forgive me. Nkrumah wept, his voice cracking. I was a fool. I was a child. I'm sorry. Please, forgive me. Patrick cupped his son's face and smiled through tears. Wipe your tears, my boy. You've already been forgiven. I've been watching. I know what you've been through, and I can see you're not a boy anymore. You are a man. They stood there, surrounded by humbled silence, as workers and traders stared in awe. A reunion written by fate, a forgiveness born from fire. When a father sees his son rise from the dust, the ancestors dance. After the emotional reunion outside the warehouse, Patrick Nkrumah held his son's shoulders and smiled, eyes still glistening. My son, he said gently, there's something you need to know. Nkrumah blinked, confused. What is it, Daddy? Patrick looked around, then gestured toward the warehouse. That building you've been managing, the warehouse, it belongs to me. Nkrumah's heart stopped. What? Yes. Patrick nodded. And the man who handed it over to you, Mr. Sarpon, he works for me. The entire warehouse operation was a test. I wanted to know if you were ready, if you had truly changed, if you were now a man, not just by age, but by wisdom. Nkrumah's legs felt weak. He turned toward Mr. Sarpong, speechless. Mr. Sarpong smiled and stepped forward. It's true. Your father assigned me to Kumasi to watch over you from a distance. My job was to test your honesty, your discipline, your patience, and my report was simple. You passed. Patrick stepped closer, proud and calm. Everything here, this warehouse, the land, the building, the staff, it's yours now. I'm not taking it back, and if you're ready, I want you to come back to Accra soon, to start managing part of my empire. Nkrumah dropped to his knees, overwhelmed with emotion. I don't know what to say, Daddy. Thank you for not giving up on me. Behind him, Nyakoa stood frozen, her hand covering her mouth. She whispered under her breath, "What am I seeing?" Nkrumah turned to her. "I wanted to tell you, but my father told me never to mention his name until I was truly a man." Tears filled her eyes. She looked at Mr. Sarpong, then at Patrick, then back at the man she once called Kaya. She laughed softly, overwhelmed. "So the man I fed, the man I gave my last cedis to, came from wealth." Patrick smiled warmly at her. "And the woman who gave my son hope when the world turned from him deserves to stand beside him." Nkrumah held Nyakoa's hand tightly. Just one day, everything changed, from Kaya boy to company owner, from heartbreak to home. The news spread like wildfire across Accra. Nkrumah, the boy who once pushed trucks in Kumasi, had returned, not as a servant, but as a CEO in training, a prince walking boldly in his father's empire. Photos of him seated beside Patrick Nkrumah at a business seminar went viral. His name appeared in newspapers and business circles. People who once mocked him now whispered his name with surprise, and in some cases, regret. Not long after settling in his father's mansion in Accra, they came. The same old friends who ignored his calls, blocked his number, and vanished when he was sleeping in kiosks and eating once a day. "Boss Nkrumah, long time, oh," they said, pretending nothing ever happened. "We dey hear say you run Accra now. We for vibe." Nkrumah looked at them, his eyes calm but firm. "You people, do you remember when I had nothing?" They exchanged awkward glances. "I called, I texted, I was hungry, homeless, and you were ghosts." One of them laughed nervously. "Oh bro, you know say time's hard, but we day for you now." He shook his head. "No, you are not here for me. You're here for what I have. You're parasites. You feed when the blood is rich, but when the blood dries up, you vanish. Again." They tried to laugh it off, but Nkrumah stepped forward. "I'm a changed man now. I move with people who have vision, people who love with actions, not just when the table is full. I'm building a life, not a fan club of fake loyalty." They fell silent. "If you came to eat," he said finally, "the party's over. But if you ever want to grow, build, and stand for something, you'll have to start where I did, from nothing." And with that, he walked away, hand in hand with Nyakoa, the woman who stood with him when the world mocked his name. Later that night, Patrick Nkrumah watched his son from a distance, nodding in silent approval. "My boy has become a man. A tree once mocked for being dry will one day bear fruit the hungry will run to." A few weeks later, Patrick Nkrumah invited his extended family, respected elders, and close business associates to a grand traditional gathering at his residence in Accra. The courtyard was decorated with colorful kente fabrics, royal umbrellas, and drummers echoing the rhythm of celebration. To publicly bless the woman who gave his son strength when he had none. As Nyakoa and Nkrumah entered hand in hand, dressed in regal Ashanti attire, the entire gathering stood in applause. She was no longer the Indomie seller or the woman who cried over Freddie. She was now being honored by one of Ghana's wealthiest men as the woman who stood by a man until he stood by himself. Patrick rose from his chair, looked into the crowd, and declared, "Today, I bless this woman not just as my son's wife-to-be, but as the daughter this family never had. When my own blood disappointed me, she gave him hope, and through her, he found purpose again." He poured libation, laid his hand on her shoulder, and added, "May your womb be blessed, your house be full, and your love never dry." The crowd roared in approval. Elders ululated. Nyakoa shed tears of joy. Nkrumah held her hand tightly, his heart full. That evening, as they sat quietly on their balcony, overlooking the city lights of Accra, Nkrumah whispered, "From Kaya boy to king, and all because of love." Final message to viewers. Fathers, sometimes the boldest act of love is tough love. If Patrick hadn't let his son fall, he would never have risen with wisdom. Don't pamper foolishness. Raise strong men, not spoiled boys. Fake friends are like shadows. They disappear in the dark. Test people's loyalty when you have nothing, not when the table is full. Women, be careful of men who only know how to receive but never give. Love is not slavery, not begging. Never force love, because love is natural. Love is reciprocal. And if you do find a man who is trying, help him. Love is giving. Love builds. Most successful men were once abandoned in their darkest hour by those who claimed to love them. May you find true love like Nkrumah and Nyakoa. Amen and amen. If this story touched your heart, thank you for watching. Please comment, like, and subscribe to Ananse Web of Tales. And don't forget to share where you are watching from. Your journey is part of this journey. We'll see you in the next story. Until then, stay wise, stay strong, and stay blessed.